Hey everybody! Ooh, that's a bit loud. Sorry. Derek here for the weekly news recap for the 17th to the 20 something? 23rd of October 2022. Sorry, we're getting started a little bit late. My lunch went a little bit longer than I was planning it to, but there we are. So let's take a look. So this week there were a couple of showcases for some different games. So Konami have seemingly decided to re-enter the video game industry and have come out with a bunch of Silent Hill announcements. And probably the biggest one out of all of them was Silent Hill 2 is getting a remake. So Silent Hill 2 is being developed by Bloober Team. Bloober Team are the people behind Layers of Fear, The Medium, the Blair Witch game, and Observer, which we have played on the channel. There's a full LP of that. The Rutger Hauer first-person cyberpunk dystopia thing. Yeah, a little... Like, it's great that we're seeing like a remake. Not necessarily a remake, but it's great that we're seeing more movement on Silent Hill. And from Konami, it's also interesting in that they are seemingly bringing in third-party developers instead of doing anything in-house, mostly because I'm not sure Konami have any first-party developers anymore, since they changed to be like pachinko parlors and what have you. They went all in on pachinko and all out on video games. But anyway, so this is going to be by Bloober Team. We don't have a whole lot about gameplay at the moment. This is an entirely CG cutscene. If you have played Silent Hill 2 before, the original, you probably recognize a lot of these different locations, a lot of these different scenes. If you're familiar with Silent Hill at all, like the foggy, I assume Midwestern US town, is probably familiar to you. Silent Hill is mostly about psychological horror as opposed to like visceral gore horror. So Bloober Team seem like they should be a good choice. The only issue is that Bloober Team, they have a good starting concepts, but they very rarely manage to bring them home, in my opinion. They have difficulty ending games well, and they do have a bit of a track record of treating mental illness and stuff as this kind of demon-like thing, which if you've played Silent Hill 2, it's sort of very much about mental health and that kind of thing. So yeah, it's a bit concerning. It's wondering how much free reign Konami have given Bloober Team and how much they're like, no, just stick to the original story. Like, just literally remake the original story as if that's what we're going for or what have you. The Silent Hill 2 is one of the touchstones for survival horror in genre. It was a very important game. So fucking that up, there's a lot on the line here for Bloober Team as well. Because if they fuck it up, it won't be remembered well. They have the Resident Evil 2 remake to go up against. Resident Evil 2, also a very important game in survival horror, and that remake is very good. So yeah, they've got a bit of a struggle ahead of them. Anyway, that's the Silent Hill 2 remake announcement. But that's not the only Silent Hill stuff that was announced. Silent Hill Townfall. Now, you won't get much out of this trailer because most of it is audio and I'm muting it, but whatever. So Silent Hill Townfall, we don't really know what kind of game it's going to be. It's going to be developed by No Code. And No Code are the people behind Stories Untold and Observation. Observation we have played on the channel. That's the one where you are playing an AI trying to help this doctor survive after they are marooned out in space. Somehow they are randomly just teleported from orbiting the Earth out to Saturn somehow. And they're like, well, shit, that's not good. And there's all sorts of mindfuckery going on in that game. I think it's very, very good, even if it's a little bit buggy on current gen. It seems fine on previous gen, but current gen, for whatever, it's a bit buggy. But yeah, No Code have a pretty good track record. So I'd be interested to see what they do with the Silent Hill IP. But as you can see, there's nothing typically about the gameplay. It's going to be published by Annapurna as opposed to Konami. So, or maybe Konami and Annapurna are teaming up for publishing rights. Who knows? Or maybe Annapurna own No Code? Not sure. Might need to look into that. Then there was a teaser. Did I say a teaser trailer? It's not a trailer. It's a behind-the-scenes kind of interview with Christoph Gans, who was the director on the original Silent Hill film, which was okay. As a video game film, or it's probably one of the better ones. It does a decent job of sticking to the tone, themes of the Silent Hill games. It doesn't try to inject any of its own mythos too much. You know, it's a decent adaptation. It's not amazing or anything, but compared to every other video game film, it's pretty good. So Return to Silent Hill is potentially a sequel, so a third Silent Hill film. It's been 2006 was when the original film came out, so it's been a while. It's probably more like a soft reboot. Silent Hill Ascension, again, another game we don't know a whole lot about. These are mostly teaser trailers. It seems that we only really know mostly about the Silent Hill 2 remake. So Silent Hill Ascension is being billed as a live-action, real-time, collaborative game. What the hell does that mean? Right? Because I don't know how you do live action and real time at the same time. And how is that like a... I don't understand. Like, what I'm thinking is, when I hear it, I'm thinking full motion video kind of thing. I'm feeling like Night Trap, or more recently the Centennial Case, which we played on the channel. So that for like live action stuff. But the real time, I don't know what they mean. We don't know a whole lot about what's happening, but you can see there's a bunch of... So hang on, I'll pause there. So there's a bunch of people involved in it. Bad Robot, you know, is J.J. Abrams. Genvid, I don't know. Behavior and DJ2 Entertainment, I think, are involved in Dead by Daylight. So it has a bit of the asymmetrical multiplayer stuff. Maybe that's what they're going for with it. I don't know. I guess we'll see. Still don't know a whole lot about that. And it's Silent Hill F. It's probably the more interesting one. Again, this isn't necessarily a teaser trailer, but it's more of a tone-setting kind of trailer. So this is being billed as the next new entry into the Silent Hill series. Silent Hill F is set in 1960s Japan. Seems like it's fairly remote. Also, people who have trypophobia, the fear of really small holes really close together, whatever that is, might not want to watch this trailer. Anyway, this is being written by Ryukishi Seven, who is apparently a very well-known horror visual novel Japanese writer. I don't know him, I guess, because I'm not in that space. But people who do know of him are very excited that he is involved in this. So that's sure good enough for me. Anyway, this whole trailer is very creepy and disturbing. There's this kind of red, whatever this kind of shit is, everywhere. It's infecting people. As you can see, it's trapping this young girl. As you might imagine from a horror thing, she does not escape, and the red fungus flowers, or whatever the fuck they are, take over. This is what I meant about the trypophobia people. You may not want to watch this. Yeah, it's certainly visually very impressive. The setting in kind of 60s Japan is an interesting idea. It's not massively far in the past, but sufficiently far in the past nowadays that it's feels a bit mythical. And before I continue with this part is particularly gross, so if you don't want to see it, you might want to look away. Lovely. I definitely needed to see that. Okay, anyway, that's Silent Hill F. We don't know when that's coming out. We don't even know who's attached to develop it. We just know there's a fairly famous writer who's writing the game. So yeah, that's our news anyway, coming out of Konami for the Silent Hill showcase, and then the whole thing is there if you want to watch it too. There's a bunch of like interviews and talks about people on what they want to see. A live, real-time interactive series is what Silent Hill Ascension is going to be. Don't know what that is. Anyway, yeah, that was the Konami stuff. Then we had Resident Evil had their own showcase. So the important ones I'm going to point out are all the stuff about Resident Evil 4 Remake. So the Resident Evil 4, again, a very important game in survival horror and a very important game in video game history in general, since it popularized the over-the-shoulder camera, which is pretty much everywhere now. Okay, it's very, very important in that sense. So having this remade and modernized for new audiences and old audiences alike is very, very good. So this particular trailer here, there are two trailers. This trailer is focused mostly on gameplay. It is the opening area of the game. People who are familiar with the game themselves might recall this is actually a fairly short segment in the original game, but it seems that it's going to be a much longer segment in the remake, similar to Resident Evil 2 Remake, where's the gas station. The gas station actually never appeared in the Resident Evil 2 original game, it was just a cutscene. Whereas in the Resident Evil 2 Remake, it was fully playable, so it's similar idea here. I think they're just lengthening it to ramp up the horror a bit more. It is certainly a lot more claustrophobic and a lot more focused on actual horror than Resident Evil 4, the original was. The original, while scary, is also very much an action game. And while I doubt there won't be a lot of action in this game, as you'll see later on in the trailer, they're definitely going for a lot more horror this time around. This attempt at the remake, I guess. Not that they'll be distinct games in themselves. The story and plotline feels like it's going to be following pretty much the same, as we'll see in the story trailer in a minute. So yeah, this is the first interaction with a ganado. So ganados are not zombies. Should be important to note out. It's because this was the first time Resident Evil decided to not have zombie enemies because they felt they weren't active enough. And I think this was before the later trend in zombie films to make them like super fast and aggressive and what have you. Previously to that, zombies were obviously very slow moving. So this was Capcom's attempt to get a bit more intelligent and a bit more active and aggressive enemies. They moved away from zombies and made ganados instead, which are like an infected... it's like a parasite that's infected these people kind of thing. Anyway, I'm going to skip ahead to one of the very well-known segments of the game, which is the opening village segment. Now, there's a couple of moments here where Leon drops into a crouch that seems like he might be stealthy. That was never a thing in the original, so we're wondering, is stealth more a focus at all in this game? Anyway, they don't go into it too much here because Leon just runs straight in and goes into combat. There's a couple of extra things that Leon has here. He has a parrying ability with his knife, so he can just stab people. The follow-up attacks that were added in Resident Evil 4 Original are going to make their way into the remake as well. He sets a cow on fire here if you don't want to look at it. Yeah, that's not particularly great. On the other hand, the cow, I think, is also infected by the coronavirus, so it's probably okay. Is it? I don't know. Anyway, yeah, they lock themselves in. Everyone who's played the original knows if you lock yourself in here, this triggers Dr. Salvador to show up. And would you know it, it also does it in the remake too. Dr. Salvador being... I'm not sure if he's actually a doctor. He's just called Dr. Salvador. He may or may not be an actual doctor. Anyway, he's got a chainsaw and a sackcloth bag on his head. And he's made a return here too. So yeah, this is definitely very high action. Not unlike the original Resident Evil 4 remake, so... The original Resident Evil 4, rather. So this is certainly sticking to what the game was like. It's certainly a big change from Resident Evil 2 remake. It's clearly the same engine, but they've added a whole bunch of stuff here. You can be grabbed and have Dr. Salvador cut your head off maybe, but he's been very good at it. You've seen that L1 prompt come up a couple of times. They don't actually use it until fairly late in this gameplay trailer, but you do see what R2 does, so you can stab. It doesn't kill them though, it just gets rid of them. And I think it'll probably be a similar thing to one of the Resident Evils where your knife would get stuck in them and you might have to go back and get it. So yeah, I think he does a parry here, although rather annoyingly GameSpot have overlaid their videos enough. But yeah, you can parry the chainsaw if you're very good at it. Bit nuts. At least it gives you some way of avoiding a one-hit kill, but it is a bit crazy. Anyway, there was then a second trailer, and this one focused considerably more on the story. I am going to more or less skip through this because it is kind of spoilery if you haven't played the original game. But it does show a lot of the new returning characters. That's a weird way to put it, but the returning characters, Leon, Ashley Graham, the president's daughter, who you are there to rescue. Ada Wong shows up in this trailer as well. I think they changed her face between 2 and 4. It looks like looks like they've changed her face a little bit. Maybe they have, maybe they haven't. Although technically it's been like 5 years since Resident Evil 2. Luis Serra is very different looking, but he's still got the kind of charm to him. The kind of greasy charm that he has going on. Sadler, Palpatine, Chief Mendez, the big cheese himself. There's the parasites erupting out of their head. Ashley has a slight character change. She has more clothes on this time around, at least. And she's actually wearing her sweater, I think, instead of just having it over her shoulder. But there's, some different changes. Sadler, it's weird trying to get used to Sadler's different voice. For whatever reason, his voice is the one that's throwing me off the most, because everyone is a different voice actor. Ada shows up. Like, she definitely looks more like Kristen Krieg than she did in the second game. That's what I'm getting from her. Anyway, the cave troll, El Gigante, and probably the most important character to return, the one everyone was looking for. No, not Salazar. No, not the blood that erupts from Ashley's throat. Come on, where are you? Does he not show up? Okay, he's not in the trailer. The merchant, basically, is in the game as well. The what are you buying guy, he's in the game too. And again, him not having the same original voice is definitely throwing me off. He's throwing me off a lot. But that was the Resident Evil showcase. There was some stuff about the Winters DLC, the Resident Evil 8 story DLC, and the third person stuff, the update to the Mercenaries mode and that kind of thing. Some cloud versions of Resident Evil are making their way to Switch. And all that jazz. But when people were like, hey, what happened to Code Veronica? You skipped it. Why isn't that getting a remake? And they're like, lol. we don't want to, more or less. The series producer Yoshiaki Hirabayashi said that there were no concrete plans to develop a Resident Evil Code Veronica remake, but didn't rule out the opportunity, saying that if the opportunity comes up, we'll think about it. But yeah, Code Veronica not particularly well received. So I don't think they were too keen to do a remake of it. It would be good if they did, though. Because it's great that they did a Resident Evil 2 remake. Because that game, while very good still on its own, definitely needed to be modernized. Like tank controls, PS1 graphics, it's definitely a hard game to send people back to play, to be like, hey, you should play this because it's kind of responsible for a lot of different video game changes over the years, so you should go back and play it. But then they're like, ugh, tank controls, polygons. Well, I can see the individual squares and everything on them. So yeah, it's hard to push them back to do that. So having a modern version of it certainly helps. While I'm happy there's a Resident Evil 4 remake, it didn't really need one. The game itself still holds up pretty well. It didn't necessarily need one, whereas Code Veronica could really have done with a remake. Similarly, it is a tank control game in a period of time where we had solved tank controls. So it's a bit of a weird one, honestly. It's like, we should probably have figured out tank controls at that point, and I think some games had. You were in a position where some studios, some developers had figured out 3D movement, camera relative 3D movement, as opposed to character relative. So yeah, if one of the Resident Evils could have done with a remake, it's definitely Code Veronica. But anyway, they'll think about it. Anyway, not to be outdone though, Square Enix had their own, not showcase exactly, they kind of just dropped this trailer on everybody. So this is Final Fantasy 16. We have not had too much information about this game, as opposed to Final Fantasy 15, where we got too much information, one might think. Final Fantasy 16, they've been playing it pretty close to the chest. This trailer kind of goes over the world that we're entering into. This is a world kind of on the brink of collapse. It looks like it's on the brink of environmental collapse. Magic has been sapped out of the world. A lot of the different countries are either in open war or have gone into isolation and stuff like that. So it introduces a couple of the different kingdoms that we'll be, I imagine, exploring at some point through the game. It does have a lot of court intrigue. There's definitely a lot of Final Fantasy 14 in this as well. I believe the child in that cutscene is meant to be our character, so it's like a couple of years previous. Your town is attacked in so many JRPG fashions and so on. You're introduced to a couple of new people here. This is very much Final Fantasy 15. I've got a lot of that going on there. Final Fantasy 14, the guy reminds me of not Radahn, because that's Elden Ring. Okay, I forget the guy's name. The leader of the wow, I can't even remember the name of the city. God, it's been a while since I played that game. All right, I really need to get back into 14. Anyway, so a lot of different people, and then we'll skip to the part that that's fun and interesting, which is gameplay. So Ifrit shows up. seems in this, in Final Fantasy 16, rather than you summoning eidolons, summons, guardian forces, whatever you want to call it, people actually turn into them instead. So you've got this guy turning into Titan, you've got a previous guy turning into Ifrit. The main character, our character, I think, turns into Phoenix, the character we will be playing, but it takes a toll on your body. Eventually you turn to stone, or you're petrified, or you lose control of it, or something like that. And the general crux of the story is they're being used as weapons of war, and they're like, why? We have like godlike power, we should be in charge, kind of thing. So I think it's sort of a revolt of these icons, as they're called in this game. So here's like combat. As you may recall, it's being done by the guy behind the Devil May Cry 5 combat design, so this is going to be a really good game to play, I think. Whether the story is of any interest to you or not, debatable, but I think it will be a good game to play at least. So you can see there, hang on, we'll skip back a bit. So you can see the health bars, the different summons that are showing up. So we have Ifrit versus Titan. We have Odin showed up there a second ago. We have Phoenix versus the Icon of Fire, who is of course Ifrit. We just probably don't have their name yet. Ifrit and Bahamut was in that shot. Odin was in a shot there previously. Shiva, I think I saw Garuda, and so on. Pretty sure that guy's Odin. So he's going to be a scary fight. But yeah, it looks really fucking good. And again, the trailer is muted, so you're not getting a lot of the court intrigue story stuff, but the writing is also really, really good. And who's that? Good question. Who's that? Because he looks a lot like fucking Sephiroth's almost final form in Final Fantasy 7. I don't imagine that's who it is, because that would be ridiculous, but it's not a summon I recognize, let's put it that way. But yeah, cool trailer. What else are we looking at? Okay, so free games on the Epic Store this week. We have Evoland Legendary Edition. Don't know a whole lot about Evoland. Evoland Legendary Edition brings you 2 great and unique RPGs with the graphic style and gameplay changing as you progress through the game. Alright, this is the game where it starts as like 8-bit and then moves up to 16-bit, 32-bit, full 3D polygonal stuff and that kind of thing. So it's trying to go through like the generations of JRPG stuff while you play through an actual JRPG. It was an interesting concept. I want to consider playing that. Anyway, that's Evoland, and then the second free game on Epic Store this week is Fallout 3 Game of the Year Edition. Fallout 3 is decent if you forget New Vegas exists. When you remember New Vegas exists, you're like, Fallout 3. I don't know. It's fine. Third person, Bethesda, in and around the same time as Oblivion kind of thing. Very buggy, but very fun. Like, it's a fun game. And was a lot of fun until New Vegas came out, and then you're like, fuck this, I'm playing New Vegas. It's a much better game. Anyway, that's it for updates for this week. But what games can you play if you wanted to right now? Well, you can play A Plague Tale Requiem. So this is the sequel to A Plague Tale Innocence. This is Amicia and Hugo once again trying to avoid getting devoured by rats, while also trying to cure Hugo of his affliction. The previous game was mostly just trying to survive through Hugo's affliction with the rats and trying to avoid the Inquisition and stuff like that. The second game seems to be taking a more active approach, and that you are actively trying to cure Hugo. We are currently doing a full LP of Plague Tale Requiem on the channel. I've done a full LP of A Plague Tale Innocence. So if you want to check that, it's over on the YouTube channel. We are currently playing through Requiem. We are 2 parts in, so there should be 2 parts up on the YouTube channel if you want to check those out. I'm really enjoying it so far, and there is a huge graphical jump. Like, yes, it's like it's also an entire change of generation, so it should be expected. It's gone from PS4 to PS5. It looks really good. It's a lot of fun. There's a lot of different changes from the original games. The original games were fairly linear, which I didn't mind. I know a lot of people were complaining that they were linear or whatever. I don't mind linearity in games, because it allows you to craft and script things, and it tends to make a more memorable experience. This is why I don't particularly like freeform sandbox stuff too much, because it doesn't have that kind of effect, but whatever. It's still working. It's still a fun game. It's still early days, though. So yeah, if you want to check that out, be playing it on Thursday evenings over on Twitch. Anyway, that's A Plague Tale Requiem. Also out this week is Gotham Knights. So this is the next entry in... Well, okay, they say it's not an Arkham sequel, but it's an Arkham sequel. Like, it might as well be. It's set in the same universe. It's set after Arkham Knight. You know, they're only saying it's not an Arkham sequel is because Batman isn't in it. The gameplay is fairly different. You know, it doesn't really play like an Arkham game. Sorry, I meant to full screen this. This Gotham Knights is... Sorry, this trailer is full CG. There's no gameplay in it. But the game itself is fairly open-ended. You can play as any of the 4 Bat children, the Bat siblings, Robin, Batgirl, Nightwing, and Red Hood. Both Nightwing and Red Hood have been a Robin in previous times. You may recall, if you know your comic book history, Nightwing was the original Robin. Red Hood was the second Robin who was killed by the Joker and was resurrected somehow. Comic books, don't ask questions. And then the latest Robin, Tim Drake, is the Robin in this game. And Batgirl is still Barbara Gordon. I don't think they've moved on to the next iteration of her yet either. But yeah, this trailer is just kind of setting up the characters and like what are they supposed to do now that Batman is gone, kind of thing, and are they up for the challenge and whatever, what have you. General response to the game has been a bit mixed. It's 30 FPS on console. It's also 30 FPS on PC unless you have a very beefy rig. There have been people saying that, like, oh, Arkham Knight is so much better, and that game was like, you know, however many years old. I do think, though, people forget how Arkham Knight launched. Arkham Knight launched really bad. Like, it was a very bad launch on PC. It was extremely buggy, very laggy. It took a while before it was fixed. It was almost a year out before it was, like, playable at all. So, you know... Versus, okay, it's 30 FPS, but at least it's fucking playable. You know, I think that's a bit of an improvement, but what have you. We'll see. We'll see how it goes when people get their hands on it and have played a little bit more of it. As I said, it only came out on Friday, so there hasn't been a lot of people playing it, and it hasn't been a lot of footage hitting the internet and so on, so we'll see. I personally will be waiting until I have played through Arkham City and Arkham Knight on the channel, and then we'll jump into Gotham Knights and we'll see how it goes. Then we have Ghostbusters Unleashed. Ghostbusters Unleashed, or Spirits Unleashed rather, is a asymmetrical 4v1 multiplayer PvP thing set in the Ghostbusters universe. You are ostensibly a bunch of new recruits to the Ghostbusters gang. They're hiring because there's a bunch of ghosts all over New York City and they need people to come by and, you know, help. And they're old and can't do the job anymore. So, yeah, you come in, you customize your character, you know, do all the fun Ghostbusters things. You know, you have your nuclear reactor... What's it called? Photon? Is it called a photon pack? That sounds wrong. Proton pack? Proton pack sounds right. Anyway, yeah, you have fairly customizable rigs and so on, and you can upgrade your equipment, PKE meter, the pack, the car, all that kind of stuff. So that's what the 4 people go in. They're going in to hunt a ghost that is haunting the particular area, and then the 4v1, so the one person is the ghost. Who was haunting the area. They have various different abilities to scare all the NPCs who are in the area, to haunt different objects so they animate and are very annoying and so on. So the job here for the ghost is to haunt the area. There's a haunted meter. You basically make your way around the map pretty much, just either covering it in slime or scaring the people who live there or haunting the different objects that are around it. The general gist of it is you need to survive long enough to hit 100% on the haunt meter, whereas the ghost busters are trying to bust you. It's pretty straightforward. They need to hunt down the ghost, tether it in their proton pack, and put it in a trap. And that's it. That's what they're going for. So it's been likened to something like Dead by Daylight, but if you want to reverse the power dynamic a little bit, Dead by Daylight, the killer is very much the power in that dynamic, whereas in Ghostbusters, the Ghostbusters are the power, really. The ghost has some abilities to get away, to slime people, to scare them. They have some ultimate abilities and stuff like that, but in general, they're kind of weak. At least the early ghosts are. Maybe the later ghosts have a bit more power in them, but again, people are only really starting to play it, so we haven't seen people leveling up to the ranks you would need to you know, to see the high-level ghost play and stuff like that. What else we got? Mario plus Rabbids, Sparks of Hope. So this is the sequel to the Mario Cross Rabbids game, which was effectively XCOM, but Mario and Rabbids. The weirdest crossover I don't think anyone expected, but whatever, it's still happening. I'm going to skip ahead to actual gameplay somewhere, please. No gameplay. This is entirely CG. Okay, there's only gameplay right at the fucking end in the last 10 seconds. Anyway, so it's an XCOM cover shooter tactical thing with Mario and friends and Rabbids and friends. Are Rabbids friends? I don't know. Anyway, I have a feeling that if you were interested in the game, you already knew it was coming out. So there's that. And then some two games that are coming to new platforms. So these are platforms they hadn't been on before, and it should be fairly big news for a lot of people who might have been interested in it, because previously these were exclusive to PlayStation consoles. So the first one up is Uncharted Legacy of Thieves Collection, which includes Uncharted 4 and Uncharted Lost Legacy. Uncharted Lost Legacy is really good. To be honest, I prefer it to Uncharted 4. I actually don't like Uncharted 4 that much, but Uncharted Lost Legacy I really like. Both of the games I can say, you know, objectively are very good games. I just don't particularly like 4 that much. But yes, very good. They're on PC, which means they can be preserved for future generations, which is kind of the thing that I'm interested in the most here, is getting as many games as possible onto PC. Not just so that PC people can play it, but it's so much easier to preserve the game if there is a PC executable code for it. Whereas having it locked to console makes it so much more difficult for game preservation. So having this on PC is very good. What I would really like to see, though, are the less well-known games also making their way to PC, not just the big high-budget blockbusters. Because it's easy for the lesser, not critically well-received games to just disappear. And I think that's a shame. Anyway, that's one of the games making their way out of the PlayStation exclusivity. The other one is, of course, Persona 5 Royal, or Royal even. If you have not played this and you are a fan of JRPGs, what are you doing? Go play it. The reason could be that you just didn't own a PlayStation and you really wanted to play it. Well, now you can play it on pretty much everything, because it is on PC, Xbox, and Switch now. Persona 5 Royal is the... not sequel exactly, so Persona 5... launched, and then Persona 5 Royal launched about 2 years afterwards, I think. Royal includes a new character, a new segment for that character, a bunch of different changes and quality of life improvements to the game, and I believe this version also has all of the DLC involved as well. It is the definitive version of Persona 5, and it's so good. It's so good, you guys. It's such a good game. You really, if you are very much a fan of JRPGs, yes, you should be playing Persona 5. So yeah, knock yourselves out now. PC, Xbox, and Switch, and if you have Game Pass, it is on Game Pass. So check that out. Okay. Unfortunately, though, we've come to the point of the show where it is now time to talk about the worst parts of video games, the video game industry. So we're going to have 2 stories here that are follow-ups to previous stories we've done on the channel. So last week we talked about Helena Taylor, who was in dispute with Platinum Games over what she called an insulting amount of money to reprise her role as Bayonetta in Bayonetta 3. She claimed she was only given a flat rate of $4,000 US for all of the voice work that would be required to reprise her role for the 3rd game, which she found, as I said, insulting, so she decided not to go ahead with it. And she felt that this was, not the way to treat voice actors who've done a lot of work and have, been instrumental in popularity of the franchise that has made hundreds of millions of US dollars. So, and yeah, she has a point. I mean, would Bayonetta have been as successful if the voice acting wasn't up to snuff? If it was Gilbert Gottfried doing the voice of Bayonetta, would it be still? Actually, to be honest, it probably still would have been. Regardless. However, some sources have disputed what Helena Taylor has said about this insulting offer. So, once again, Chrome has eaten my... has Chrome eaten my highlights again? It has. Okay, awesome. All right, anyway. So, some sources coming out of Bloomberg have suggested that this $4,000 offer is not entirely correct. They're suggesting that it was instead a $4,000 per session. As you might imagine, voice acting for a video game, you're not going to get it all in one go. So you're going to have to do it in over a couple of different sessions. And the idea was that she would be paid $3,000 to $4,000 per session. And the sessions would be 4 or 5 sessions in general, so it would be up to like, you know, $15,000-$20,000 entirely for the whole work, which is like a year's salary for a lot of people, or close to a year's salary for a lot of people. So there's some dispute over whether or not that is true. One dispute is that you know, there's more to it than that. VGC, who we're using their article because Bloomberg is paywalled, but VGC have also corroborated it. I'm really annoyed that my highlights are gone because it means I need to kind of skim through this to find the stuff I want to talk about. One person with knowledge of the deal claimed that this represented a significant increase on Taylor's fee for the second game, so she would potentially be being paid even more than she was for the very second game. So this seems like, you know, this is a pretty big boost, and you're still considering it an insult. The other issue was that Helena Taylor allegedly pushed back on that offer and said she wanted instead a 6-figure sum as well as residuals on the game. For Helena Taylor's part, she strongly denies this and says this is laughable, categorically untrue that she would have asked for this. And VGC sources echoed the residuals claim that she did claim she wanted residuals, but did not mention a requested 6-figure sum. So there's some dispute again on what exactly is happening here. Ellen Taylor, for her part, is like, I'd quite like to put this in the rearview mirror and leave the whole bloody franchise behind, so I think I'll just let my video stand. I spoke the truth. So for her part, she's sticking to her. This was an insultingly low amount of money. It was only going to be $4,000 for the entire thing, as opposed to $4,000 per session, which is what a lot of other people are saying. And this later, Jennifer Hale, the current voice actor for Bayonetta 3, came out to say that, you know, can we stop with the abuse and whatever? Other people have worked on Bayonetta 3. You know, it's important that we understand that this was a collaborative effort and it's not just yada yada yada. Anyone who knows me or has followed my career will know that I have great respect for my peers and that I'm an advocate for all members of the community, which is true. I follow her on Twitter. She very much is. I am under NDA and I'm not at liberty to speak regarding the situation. My reputation speaks for itself. So yeah, so stop being shitheads, basically, to Jennifer Hale. It is not her fault that Platinum Games decided to go with somebody else, or that pay negotiations fell through between Platinum Games and Helena Taylor. Stop being Twitter shitheads, basically. Just you. Well, not you, because you don't watch the show. But pretend you're watching the show. And if you are, stop watching my show. I don't want you here. Anyway, Hideki Kamiya was also, you know, getting slated and abused. But if anyone who knows of Hideki Kamiya's Twitter following knows, he is very ban happy. He'll ban people for just the slightest amount of things. In fact, he will ban people who specifically request to be banned. He's very happy to do so. And because he was having to ban so many people, his account was suspended because he was banning too fast. This is a rate limiting thing, but whatever, he's back on it now. And also after that, Platinum Games did come out in support of Jennifer Hale, and they echoed the whole thing of, you know, stop being abusive, toxic shitheads in the comments section, please. Anyway, we don't know if there'll be more to this or whatever. Helena Taylor says she's leaving it behind. She'll leave her videos up and that's it. Done. She's not interested in coming back. Don't know if we'll hear any more about this, but yeah, it's pretty ugly. It's not great. Okay, the second story on something we looked at previously. Toji Productions, Mojican, and PQ reach a mutually agreeable resolution after dispute. So, you may recall that Toji Productions and Mojican Studio, who are people behind A Space for the Unbound game, were meant to have their game published by PQ, who are a UK publishing group. However, there was some dispute that came up because PQ had allegedly applied for a grant from one of the big console people. So I'm pretty sure it's PlayStation, but it was never specified who exactly it was, but it sounds like a PlayStation thing. And they applied for a grant based on the developers, Toji Productions and Mojican Studios, based on their heritage. So they're from Indonesia, which is a typically underrepresented locale in video game development in general. So they applied for a grant, and then allegedly they did not send the grant on to the developers themselves. They kept the grant, is what is stipulated, and that was the dispute in the first place. But apparently things have now been worked out. PCube has restituted grant funds to Toji Productions as well as rights to its game, Space for the Unbound. They were holding back the rights because they were waiting for updates and whatever have you. P-Cube wanted like performance updates and stuff for the game, whereas Toast Productions was like, you're not getting anything until you pay us the money we're owed. So there was a kind of a holding pattern for that. A statement was released on Twitter. Toast Productions, Mojang Studio, P-Cube, and Chorus Worldwide, who are the new publisher, have reached an agreement to the satisfaction of all parties with regards to the release of A Space for the Unbound. All parties would like to clarify that 1. All grant monies received by P-Cube or received by Toast Productions, and P-Cube has fully supported the return of rights to Toast Productions. So, you know, job done. You know, we're done. We didn't have to go to court. Everything is settled. It's nice that they went this way and we didn't have to go into crazy lawsuits and games being held up and what have you and whatever. So, Chorus Worldwide will handle publishing of A Space for the Unbound on consoles, whereas Toast Productions and Mojang Studio will handle PC, which has been happening up till this point. So, an actual good resolution to one of these stories instead of, well, one, a resolution in the first place, because these things tend to just keep going, but at least it was a good resolution this time. Okay. Shitting on Activision time. So, Blizzard Albany QA getting their own union vote. So, Blizzard Albany are responsible for Diablo, basically. They're the Diablo testing team. The National Labor Relations Board, the NLRB, approved the Blizzard Albany QA team's efforts to seek a vote on unionization. So this echoes the same thing as Raven Software previously, who were the Call of Duty QA people. So they got their union vote. It went through. They now have a union. Blizzard Albany have now won the right to vote to unionize. The vote itself hasn't taken place, but they have won the right to it. Activision Blizzard had argued that a unionization vote should be put to the entire studio. This was a tactic they tried to play at Raven Software as well. The NLRB said, lol, no. Activision's argument was that a small cohort of people should not be making decisions for the entire studio, seemingly forgetting that the C-suite of Activision, which is a small cohort of people, makes decisions for the entire Activision Blizzard group, and they seem perfectly fine with that, but not when it's the low-level employees making those decisions. You have a problem with that, do you? Anyway, the NLRB said the Raven QA one was like, no, they can't. They are a unit all by themselves. They are the QA team, and that is a prerequisite for unionization, is that they have some kind of shared thing. You know, they're the QA team, they're the development team, they're the janitorial staff, they're the whatever, to unionize. They said much the same thing. They are the QA team. That doesn't really change them. And the other thing was that they are paid so little compared to the rest of the staff. So they roughly make about 40k, the QA team, annually, compared to other people at the studio who make 56k up to 175k. So their pay disparity was enough to put them in their own cohort to unionize. So Activision shot themselves in the foot by not paying them well enough. Anyway, they won the right to vote. Activision, while we respect the NLRB process, we strongly disagree that a decision that could significantly impact the future of the entire Albany-based Diablo team should be made by just a handful of employees. Fuck you, Activision. You're happy enough to do that when it's just the CEO and the C-suite doing it, but whatever. So yes, they won their right to vote to unionize. The vote will take place later in October, and you'll find out the results some stage in the middle of November. So good, more unionization coming. Activision getting shit on once again. But we're not done with that. Activision's newest exec has decided to just post through it. So this is Lulu Cheng Meservey, who came on to replace Francis Townsend, who has left the company as chief people officer or something like that, but is still being employed by the board, which is a weird one. Feels like she really is still an employee, but technically not, because it's freelance position or something like that. Anyway, Lulu Cheng Meservey has been on the job less than a month, but she's already managed to piss off everybody who works there. Meservey warned staff via Slack that organizing could lead to lower raises and tough clashes with management. So again, she's gone all in on union busting. You think they would have learned their lesson at this point. And this is after Blizzard Albany won their vote. This wasn't even during that process. This was after they won the vote. We feel collective bargaining is comparatively slow. Correct. It is meant to be. It is meant to be slow so you don't fuck them over. That is the point. They're saying that, oh, well, we're in union negotiations, we can't give you pay rises and yada yada yada. Well, we wouldn't have to go through union negotiations if you were giving those pay rises, so here we are. The company's latest attempt to discourage any workers from unionizing. Despite Missouri calling for direct dialogue with employees rather than through a union, most staff were prevented from directly commenting in the channel. This is the Slack channel where she made the mention of, like, we should do direct dialogue with employees, each individual employee where they have zero power versus against the union where they have lots of power. Yes, that's better. It's better for the company, certainly. It's not better for the employee. But anyway, most staff were prevented from directly commenting in the channel, so where's that direct dialogue we're talking about? It's direct dialogue one way. It's one-way dialogue, maybe. And instead, she was met with negative emojis instead. She responded by saying, I can hear the booing from here and have registered the disappointed dog emojis. So yeah, clearly she's not taking this very seriously, whereas everyone else is very serious about it. So yeah, it seems like person who's been brought in to replace the chief people officer, who, remember, was forced to leave like the women in Activision board or group or whatever it was because she just didn't believe the harassment allegations, sexual assault allegations and stuff like that. The person who was brought in to replace her similarly seems to be very anti-union. Cool. Activision definitely learning its lesson there. Alright, in terrible game preservation news, EA shutting down online features for Mirror's Edge, Red Alert 3, and more in coming months. So, lots of games are being disappeared, their multiplayer segments at least. Army of Two with 40th Day, and Army of Two The Devil's Cartel, Dragon Age Origins MP screenshot server, where the hell that is. I guess you could share screenshots with people? The Army of Two thing was a 2-player co-op game thing, so if you ever want to play that with another person now, you won't be able to. You'll have to do it local. That's the only way to do it. Though, to be honest, it's kind of the best way to do it. Anyway, Command & Conquer, Red Alert, that's the Tim Curry one where he says, I'm going to the one place that has not been corrupted by capitalism. Spice! Anyway, Command & Conquer 3 Tiberian Wars and Mercenaries 2 are having their multiplayer things pulled. Mercenaries 2, I don't remember having much of a multiplayer mode, so maybe it was like a PvP thing that I just ignored. Command & Conquer, though, like a lot of Command & Conquer is tactical warfare against other people, so that's a huge blow. Onrush, racing game. So again, you're only going to be able to race against bots from then on. Super Mega Baseball, I imagine, is playing against other people. Gatling Gears, I don't know. Mirror's Edge is a real shame to lose multiplayer for that. So the way multiplayer worked in Mirror's Edge, there were challenge runs that you could do. So Mirror's Edge, if you don't remember, Mirror's Edge is a first-person parkour game. It's one of the only first-person parkour games. It's very fun. There's a full LP of it on the channel if you want to check it out. It's like the first LP I did. And the way multiplayer worked in that game was there were challenge modes and challenge maps you could parkour around to try to get the fastest time and find the quickest route and so on, and that kind of thing. And the way multiplayer worked was that you could see ghosts of the people. You could pick somebody at like number 1 and see how did they do the map, and you'll see crazy routes that they took, stuff you never would have thought of trying to do, and you'd be like, how the hell do I even do that kind of thing. That's a real shame, because you're gonna lose a lot of like that interesting almost tutorializing on more advanced techniques. Like, the game never requires them of you. If you play through the main campaign, you'll never need to learn any of these. It's like triple wall jumps, like turns, managing to curl yourself through small gaps and stuff like that. You never really need to do it in the main game. But you do need to kind of do it in the challenge modes if you want to get those kind of scores, which is a bit nuts, you know? And even if you see like first place, you're like, okay, that's insane, I can't do any of that. You can go back to like 500th place. How do they do it? And you're like, okay, that's still impressive, but I think I can actually do that. And you work your way up. Without those ghosts, you're not gonna be able to do that. So having those servers shut down isn't great for game preservation stuff. It would be nice if they cached it, maybe cache the ones that are just there right now and just have them available for people to pull down, but they're not, because obviously no one is really playing the original Mirror's Edge multiplayer anymore. But anyway, Right, we're gonna finish off with some dumb stuff. Why do you never remember what I tell you? PlayStation Lifestyle. This is why I don't use you very often for this video. Anyway, so Sony tweet. They tweeted out. They do this thing where they do a very extreme close-up of a video game video game box art, and they're like, guess the video game kind of thing. And they made the very stupid mistake of using Bloodborne this week. Anyone who has been on the Bloodborne Twitters and so on, or on PlayStation Twitter or whatever, will know that they are extremely sensitive to Bloodborne stuff, because they are like rabid for Bloodborne news. They want Bloodborne 2, they want a Bloodborne remake, just fucking make it happen all this time, and they haven't done it. So yeah, the official Sony Twitter account just fucking did it. The tweet in question posted a zoomed in photo of a part of Bloodborne's box art and casually asked fans, which PlayStation game cover are we zooming in on? The replies, of course, were, considerable anger over the fact that there hasn't been a Bloodborne sequel, that there hasn't been a remake, people speculating that, hey, there's an announcement on the way, oh yeah, everyone's getting hype, which prompted Sony to realize that it should have known better. And then it deleted the tweet. It hasn't deleted any of the other zoomed in box art thing, but I think they realized that, oh no, we fucked up. We definitely fucked up. We've got them riled up. They think an announcement is coming. Oh no. Let's backpedal on that one. Yeah, and it just highlights that why hasn't this happened? You can probably guess a couple of reasons. Mostly it's that Sony don't have a Japanese developer presence anymore. Really? Because they've gone full US HQ. Japan studio is shut down, which was part of the development and publishing group for Bloodborne and the Demon Souls remake. That studio is gone now. From Software mostly gets its stuff published by Bandai Namco these days. So they can't work on a Bloodborne 2 because Sony own the IP. Sony would have to get From Software involved. From Software are like, we're kind of with Bandai Namco now, so I imagine there is some horrible shenanigans going on here. Will we ever see a Bloodborne remake? Maybe. They might get Bluepoint, who did the Demon Souls remake, to do it. But again, as I said, Japan Studio are gone now. They are defunct because Sony have taken a stupid plan to just only focus on prestige stuff and only focus on Western games for some reason. Despite them being a Japanese studio, they've moved their entire HQ over to America. And in my opinion, it was a mistake. Anyway. Last part for dumb stuff. Fallout London mod removes the ghoulish royal family members from development. So following the death of the Queen and the Prince Charles becoming King Charles, they've elected to remove the ghoul versions of Prince Charles and Queen Elizabeth from their mod, which is just, why? Who cares? Just leave them in. Anyway. In light of the Queen's passing, the team behind the upcoming Fallout London mod for Fallout 4 has chosen to remove her likeness and that of King Charles from development. Why? It would have been funnier if you left them in, but whatever. It's just, I don't know. It's dumb. It's dumb they were in there in the first place, but that they were in there, you kind of should have just left them in. Anyway, I thought it was stupid. And I don't think I'm wrong for thinking it was stupid. Anyway. I'm gonna leave Plague Tale to loop. Anyway, that was the news for 17th to the 23rd of October 2022. So huge news from Konami around Silent Hill stuff. Silent Hill 2 getting a remake. Then we have Silent Hill Townfall, Silent Hill Ascension, and Silent Hill F, which is F for fucked up, I think. It's a horrible looking game. I still want to play it. Yeah, it's good to see Silent Hill is getting some movement. There were rumors that Silent Hill 2 was getting a remake, and then there were rumors that a bunch of different developers were attached to it. Like No Code were attached to a Silent Hill 2 remake at one point. Bloober Team were probably the most rumored one. And turns out that rumor was true, but it also turns out the No Code rumor was kind of true as well. It's just they weren't working on Silent Hill 2 remake. They were working on a different Silent Hill. Now, it's possible that a lot of different developers pitched Silent Hill games to Konami, and they've just decided to go with a couple of them instead of just one. They're doing like a Silent Hill Blitz to get back into, maybe trying to get back into game development. I don't know. Maybe they're just going to stay as an IP publishing house instead. Because as I said, I don't think they have any first-party developers anymore. So that will be interesting to see what they're doing with that. All the stuff out of Resident Evil 4, there's a lot more in the actual showcase if you want to watch that. There's stuff about the merchant, how to upgrade your materials, what you'll be collecting, treasures, changes that have happened in the game, and so on. Um, I'm definitely liking what I'm seeing. I'm just not sure if I'm going to get all the other Resident Evils done before that comes out, because I don't think it's going to happen. Anyway, Final Fantasy 16. The more we can learn about that, the better. I'm very intrigued on what we are seeing of the game, and definitely the combat. It has a lot of Devil May Cry to it, so I'm just wondering how much, because Devil May Cry 5 is one of my like favorite just brawler combat games. It's just done so very good, and it's very deep. Like there's so many like different combos and transitions and stuff like that that you can manage. And if Final Fantasy even has like half of that, it'll be great. New releases, Plague Tale Requiem that we're seeing here. There's a full LP, or we're working our way through a full LP of it on Twitch at the moment. If you want to check that out, it's Thursday evenings. Gotham Knights, again, its response is that it's fine. You know, it's okay. It's not a patch on Arkham games, and I don't think they were necessarily trying to do that. I think they were trying to go for their own thing, but of course getting out of the shadow of the Arkham games is going to be difficult for them. We'll know more in like a month, 2 months from now to see how the game itself has actually been received, because it is a fairly big game. I think it's going to take a while for the general gaming community to get through the game and have a consensus around it. For my part, I won't be playing it until the price comes down, because it's way too expensive at the moment. It's like $79.99. It's too much. It's too much for a game that I know I'm not going to be playing for a while, because I'm not going to play it until I've done Arkham City and Arkham Knight. I've already done Arkham Asylum on the channel. You can check that out as well. There's a full LP of it up over on YouTube. So I guess we'll see. And having Persona 5 Royal and Uncharted Legacy Thieves, you know, out of the Sony exclusivity is good. More of that, please. Fewer exclusives would be good. You know, practically zero exclusives would be great, to be honest. Or exclusive and also PC, so that we can preserve it. You know, that's kind of the way I would like to go with it. Anyway, obviously the console manufacturers need exclusives because it's what sells their consoles. You know, what's the point in buying a PS5 if a PC will do the same job? You know, what's the point in getting a Nintendo Switch if you can play Mario anywhere? You know, that kind of thing. Anyway, industry news, the whole shit around Bayonetta. I'm sure there's a lot of stuff on, a lot of information that is under NDA, and then there's a lot of information that was going to paint Helena Taylor in a bad light, so the information is going to paint Platinum Games in a bad light. Who's who? You know, who's really at fault here? We don't know. I don't think we're ever going to know, really. We do know that voice actors aren't particularly well treated in the video game industry in general, so there's probably going to be a hint of that as well. On the other hand, they brought her in for Bayonetta 1 and 2. Like, I don't see why they wouldn't have brought her in for 3 unless there was, you know, something weird happening there. Toshi Productions and P-Cube thing being settled, it's just done, settled, is like, it's almost weird in that it's just, yeah, sorted, cool. It's like, okay, good, but also, alright. I mean, yeah, moving on, I guess. More unionizing in Activision, more unionizing in general in the video game industry is good. It's just particularly personally schadenfreude, I guess, for Activision to being hit with all this shit, because you know how I've treated Activision on this show. I'm not a fan in any way whatsoever. Anytime they get shit on, I'm very happy to talk about it. So there's that. And then Sony tweeting Bloodborne stuff without realizing that, yeah, they're still salty about it, guys. They're still angry. It's not going away. It's not, you can't just make a joke about this kind of stuff. Anyway, that was the weekly news for 17th, 23rd of October. But what is happening on the channel? So let's move back to full screen and full screen. So here is our second half of 2022 roadmap, mosaic, shortlist, whatever you want to call it. Reminder for people who've forgotten, or for people who've never seen this before, the green ticks are games we have played on the channel, at least a little bit. Some of them are full LPs, some of them are just one-shot videos. In fact, the vast majority of them are one-shot videos, because I am easily bored and I move on from games very quickly. Sorry, I'm like that. I get my fill of it. I get the gist of the game, and I'm like, yep, that's good, or yep, that's not good, and then I move on. And it's only occasionally that I actually stick with the game of the whole thing. I'm trying to fix that. More on that next year. I have a plan, but more on that next year. Anyway, so green ticks are games we have played at least once on the channel. Some of them all the way through, some of them just the first 2 to 3 hours. The yellow dotted ones are games that are currently in progress on the channel. So Plague Tale Requiem, Returnal, Neo, Vampire, The Masquerade Swansong, and Resident Evil Director's Cut are all somewhat in progress. Some of them are more in progress than others. We started Vampire the Masquerade Swansong this week. It is kind of like The Council that we've played previously. It is a choose-your-own-adventure, interactive detective kind of thing where something has happened in Boston to some of the higher level vampire people, and we are being brought in to kind of, one, figure out what exactly happened, and two, cover it up so the humans don't, figure out what the hell's happening. It is based in the Vampire the Masquerade universe, and in that universe, vampires are living among us in modern times. The Masquerade is this grand conspiracy between vampires to hide themselves from humanity. And violating the Masquerade is punishable by very horrible things, and this seems like something like that might have happened. So we started that on Monday, and we'll be continuing it on Wednesdays going forward until it is done. A Plague Tale Requiem came out this week, and we started an LP of it. We played 2 times this week. We played on Wednesday and Thursday. We are up to chapter 6 or so in the game. So at this point, very impressed so far. I'm really, really enjoying it. There are some parts of it where I'm like, I would have done something different there, but it's fine. Like, it worked out. I can enjoy it objectively as well as subjectively, so we have that going for us. And Resident Evil we played yesterday. We're still on Jill's. I have made it to the lab as I said I would, but rather than play all the way through, because there isn't actually much left once you hit the lab, I don't remember how to get the good ending. So I paused it because I need to reread how you actually do the good ending. So we're going to do that when we're back. And as I said, since there's not a whole lot left, the next time we play Resident Evil, we will also be starting Chris's playthrough and that as well. And then the gray clocks are games that are coming up pretty soon. They're coming up within 2 to 3 weeks. And then if it doesn't have a clock on it, I don't know when it's coming up. Or more specifically, it's longer than 3 weeks away or something like that. So next week, Monday, I am thinking we're going to take a look at Little Nightmares. Because it is the spooky month. Why aren't you going full screen? Go full screen, please. Because it is the spooky month, and I had been meaning to do more horror stuff earlier, but I don't know, I just didn't get around to it. But I am planning to do it now. Little Nightmares isn't particularly long. We should probably finish it before Halloween. No, actually, we won't finish it before Halloween. We might finish it on Halloween. That might be it. Anyway, Little Nightmares is a almost Tim Burton side-scrolling puzzle 'em up kind of thing. It's pretty creepy, but I really like it. So we're going to play that at least on Monday, and maybe probably into next week as well. Wednesday, we'll continue with Vampire the Masquerade Swansong. We actually didn't get very far, despite playing it for almost 3 hours on Monday last week, rather. We didn't get very far. We're still only really in the first chapter, so there's a fairly lengthy opening to the game. It's kind of setting up the universe for people who haven't played it before. It's setting up the different characters we're playing as. We're playing as 3 distinct vampire characters who have their own strengths, weaknesses. So it'll be interesting to see where the story goes from there. I have never played it before, don't know anything about the story or anything like that. So yeah, I'm kind of learning as I play, not unlike people who might be watching it. So feel free to jump in on that. We'll be playing that on Wednesday. Thursday, as we have been doing this week, we'll be continuing a Plague Tale Requiem. So we have, as I said, we're up to chapter 6. We'll be continuing on that. Anyone who has played the game themselves might know when that happens. Spoilers, I'm not going to spoil it because the game is very new, so I'm not going to say anything about where we are or give any hints or anything like that. I'm just going to say chapter 6. That's where we're at. And then Friday, Signalis is released on Thursday, I believe. And Signalis is almost a throwback to stuff like... it honestly gives me a Parasite Eve vibe to it. I don't imagine it's actually going to play like Parasite Eve, but that's the vibe I'm getting from the game. So it is a old school survival horror thing. You are brought onto this isolated base on this planet somewhere. You are looking for somebody. Again, I'm trying to avoid as much of the story as possible because I don't want to know. I want to, go in blind on it. But I'm really much digging the art style, the aesthetic. It's got this throwback PlayStation 1 style, but the PlayStation 1 would never be able to output these kind of graphics as well. So it looks really fun. In a horrible, terrible, stress, tense way, it looks like it'll be fun. So we're going to play that on Friday. And depending on how it goes, it may turn into a full LP because I do like the look of it. And then Saturday, we will, of course, be continuing with Resident Evil. As I said, with Jill, we have reached the lab just about. And again, because I don't remember how to get the good ending, I know there's something I need to do. I just need to remember the exact order to make that happen. And I didn't want to spend another hour bumbling around not knowing what I was doing and then not getting the good ending and having to restart the whole game. So, I don't know. The risk of having to end the stream somewhat earlier than I intended. But whatever. I'll know what to do next time, and then we will start Chris's playthrough as well. And then after that, we'll figure out what we're going to be doing. So yes, that is the week coming. So tomorrow, Monday, Little Nightmares. Wednesday, Vampire the Masquerade Swan Song. Thursday, A Plague Tale Requiem. Friday, Signalis. And Saturday, Resident Evil Director's Cut. And then we'll be right back around to the weekly news recap on Sunday. So hopefully I'll see you guys for some of that. This is a channel update for the week starting the 24th of October 2022. So hopefully I'll see you for some of that. It's all fairly spooky, tense shit for this week. Little Nightmares is a very creepy game. Vampire the Masquerade is vampires. It's very Halloween-y. Plague Tale Requiem is horrible plague stuff and big swarms of rats eating people. I don't know, that's pretty horrific. And Signalis is just straight up a survival horror thing. And Resident Evil is, of course, the big daddy of survival horror games. Is it the big daddy? Alone in the Dark is probably, really. Maybe it's the most well-known daddy Resident Evil of survival horror, I guess, in that case. Anyway, I'm going to stop talking because I'm talking gibberish at this point. I'm going to head off. So that was our weekly news recap and a channel update for 17th to 23rd of October 2022. Have a good one. Hopefully see you for Little Nightmares tomorrow. Have a good rest of your Sunday. Bye-bye.